The original title of my comic was The Holy Bible, and I decided to change it for that reason.
Now that's a good way to get popular. Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 559. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tars, Bane, and Pitt. Hello.
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 Hello. So this week we're talking about our new Friday news post feature, which is the DD Fashion Spotlight, which is a new thing I've come up with to replace Em while she is dealing with her chronic fatigue issues. So it's an interesting little thing, but we'll talk about that after we've tackled our features for this week, which is the featured comic. So I'm going to tell you about the featured comic this week, which was Catch 22 now. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Catch 22. Olivia has always seen a bit more than others. She has the sight. It serves her well with the creatures with which she deals, terrifying monsters beyond normal human understanding. Her activities aren't exactly on the up and up, though, so she has to be extra careful. Her clients tend to be from the literal underworld. This eventually and inevitably brings her into conflict with the police. Now she has to work with them in order to return to safety. There are creatures of the fairy folk, werewolves, ogres, and more in Catch 22. It's an urban fantasy as told by Guy Ritchie, starring a woman with David Bowie eyes. The art is all pen on paper with some colour and quite nice to look at in the action-adventure story. It really is an action-adventure story. It's got some really cool looking art. Most of it is in black and white, though there is some colour, as I say. Very rare these days to have a comic with pen on paper. Most comics these days are all digital, which is rather interesting. So it's good to see this. It's a bit unique in that regard. And it's pretty cool to see these different fairy monsters and the way they've been rendered. There's not many so far. There's a few ogres and things like that. But we're sure to get more as the story progresses, and there should be a lot more because this is a comic that has mostly had a lot of it completed and it's being uploaded in great big chunks, so there should be a lot to sort of work your way through. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Catch 22 by Orc Daddy, and it's rated M for mature. And that was the featured comic, Catch 22. So next up, I'm going to talk about the featured music, which this week Gunwales gave us the theme to Tiger T. Bass notes lead us on a winding path to a vast winding staircase built by a relentless driving synthesized tune that takes us on a mysterious journey up, down and around, disorienting and enchanting. So take it away, Gunwales, with Tiger T. And that was Gumwallis with Tiger Tea, which is a great little comic by Patty Wolf, rated M. So there you go. Patty Wolf, rated M. Have a little check out of that comic because it's going to probably be featured soon. It's it's one of those kind of comics. Looks good. So this QUACKCAST, the idea is it's based on this fashion feature, which is my Friday news post, which I'm doing the DD Spotlight on fashion, where I pick a random comic and I talk about the fashion that a particular character has on. So this whole thing was, there's a few inspirations behind it. One of them was the fact that poor old M can't do her Friday news post because she is a bit poorly at the moment, and while she's getting that looked into, she has to kind of cut back on her duties pretty much, and doing the Friday news post is part of that. I think she still does her Sunday quack chats on Twitter. Mm-hmm. So she's still doing that, but the news posts are a bit too much for her to do. So I resolved to do something instead of actually what I originally did was I came up with this idea of the fashion spotlight, and I talked to Vinomas into doing it. I said, Vinomas, you're the fashion guy. Why don't you do this? Please, you'd be awesome at it. And he looked at it and he just said, yep, I kind of experimented with it, but it's just too much for me. I've got too much on, and I won't be able to do it. I won't be able to commit, my kind of all my efforts towards it. So since he couldn't do it, I thought maybe I'll try and do it myself. And there are a few inspirations towards this. One of them was the comic that I featured just a little while ago by Sleeping Gorilla, the artist behind the comic Chyla. He did this community project, which was the Halloween fashion show. So they share little kind of cut out dolls of all their comic characters, and then they take turns dressing them up in fancy Halloween costumes for Halloween, for the little Halloween fashion show, and then they put it into a webcomic, which was a great little community project. I loved it, and it got the ball rolling in my head about fashion. And then Tanzarine did a news post about hairstyles and how different kind of hairstyles indicate how a character is thinking, their emotional state, and all this kind of stuff. So then again, that sort of caught in my mind. Okay, so artists creating, showing a character's personality by some kind of visual cues, hairstyles, hair fashions, and that kind of stuff. So that directed me towards the idea of doing a spotlight on fashion. So the whole spotlight on fashion will allow me to promote comics without the structure of a feature. So the feature has a lot of restrictions to it. It can only be comics that are recently updated. It can only be comics with 15 pages or more. They can't be adult, and they can't have been featured before, and they can't be in the top 10. So there's all those things. And the reason for all those things is so comics that are in the top 10 can't be featured, because they don't need the extra promotion because they're already in the top 10. They have to have more than 15 pages, because what's the point of featuring a comic if there's not enough pages for someone to read and find out about the story? They can't be adult because we can't really, promote an adult comic on the site. But if I'm only tackling the fashion, it doesn't really matter. None of those factors matter, which means we open things up to a whole lot more people who are excluded from being promoted. Maybe someone got a feature 10 years ago and their comic's forgotten now. So it's good to have it, open up some way. Maybe someone has, only done three pages in their comic or whatever. They haven't got enough story to have people really hooked, but they've got really excellent designs. So again, that's another good reason. Maybe this adult comic just looks brilliant, but it's adult, so we can't feature it. But that lessens the amount of people who can appreciate it just for its creativity and its artwork. So I'm proud to, and I'm happy to be able to have a different way of promoting these comics. And fashion is a good way to do it.
Hear, hear.
So if you have a not safe for work comic that only has one page from 15 years ago, this could be your time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everything's coming up Millhouse. Precisely. So yeah, I hope to be able to do a lot more features of interesting unknown comics, or even extra known comics. Who cares? Like all the comics in the top 10, you're all fodder for the potential feature. And well, like I was saying before, like some of the things that occurred to me after featuring this latest comic, which is the Intrepid Torpedo, which is this weird superhero comic with only like, I don't know, maybe 10 pages or something like. No, actually I think it had like 50 pages. So it had a decent amount of pages, but it just stopped being published like in 2011, 2012, something like this. I don't know. It was many, many years ago. But one of the interesting things was it's a superhero comic, and these characters, like one of them's called Crusader X, one of them's called the Intrepid Torpedo. There's a whole lot of cues for different parts of their name in their outfits that you really wouldn't notice, like the Crusader with the huge Christian cross. That's part of his outfit. That's I didn't even notice when I originally looked at it, because it's like this bright, loud red and blue with gold stripes and stuff like that. But actually looking at the costume, then you can see, oh yeah, now that's a massive Christian cross on there. And then he's got this other T thing on his chest. Oh, it's another cross, like a Maltese cross on his chest. And then he's got like this blue cross on his head. Oh, that's the Crusader X part. So yeah, he's got all these different Christian crosses and cross stuff in his outfit. It's just amazing. So you learn a lot of you pick up on the effort this creator has done, like massive effort this creator has had in his work to create his characters and have different traits of them within his the costumes by themselves. So anyway, how about you guys? Pitt, you're going damn it, right? So this means you're thinking about aspects of your costume.
Ozone Ocean. Son of a bitch. You planted this whole fucking thing, didn't you? God damn it. You bastard. Oh.
So, no, this isn't going to be spoilers for your comics. I'm not going to bring up the specifics of what you...
No, it's fine. I don't mind. When Helmut eventually goes into full magical girl mode, so to speak. This is real confusing for the people who don't know what's coming. He also has a background in the Crusades and a Crusader's cross, the cross of the Order of St. Lazarus, which is green, so it's not the same. Going to be featured on his as well. I had this idea. I had no idea about this other comic. It's great. I'm really glad you featured it. But listen, Ozone Ocean.
So glad. You sound so glad. Well, I mean, in its defense, it is like, I mean, classic Crusader thing is to have a cross on the front of an outfit.
Yeah, but we both are incorporating it into like their super dramatic ultra other persona. That's fine. I don't care. It's fine. More people should do it, I think. Go ahead.
We should all do it. I think the difference is that Helmut is actually a crusader, or at least will be one. So that it's not just a nod to like, my name is Crusader, then look at my outfit, it's also Crusader. It's more like, this was my job, this was my life. This is actually me, my personality. So there's more of a reason for it.
Yeah, and actually I don't think I have ever heard of any character across mediums of having the Order of St. Lazarus. So,
yay!
I've never even heard of St. Lazarus.
I've completely usurped this poor person's spotlight of my own, but that's okay. No, it's not.
Yeah,
well
this
done.
Guy who hasn't been on the site for
well,
so
fuck
many
him then.
years.
Talk about my shit.
Still a dedicated QUACKCAST listener.
Well,
Very hurt right now.
He gave us a great pair of buttocks anyway.
That's all that matters. You know what? If you can do that, you have me as a captive audience for fucking sure. So, bravo.
His name is Saraling Mundo. And he's a Filipino guy. And yeah, Saraling Mundo means something, a world of one's own. Oh, okay. That's very nice.
Neat.
And he's the creator of this comic. And I don't think he's been around since 2011. So there you go. So yeah.
I hope he's still alive. I hope he's okay.
Yeah, I hate that, don't you? That you don't know whether people are alive or dead. Well,
I mean,
we're not
life just happens, but you never know. Yeah, I have a bad, I guess it's not a habit, but it probably happens to a lot of people. Like if somebody or something comes up that you haven't heard of for a while, or even if you're watching like a movie and there's like some kind of animal like a horse in it or something, and it's an old movie. It's like, I wonder if they're still alive. I hope they are. But anyway.
What's the saying that people do just to tie it back to fashion? What? Die young and leave a beautiful corpse. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, okay, so yeah. Fashion. Alright, so you guys all definitely come up with outfits. Now, Tanserine, we talked about Iris in our Patreon video. Now, Iris is the only super fashion star at the moment because she can afford to be that way in 1940s Athens, which is unfortunately, people are.
Well, you cannot really, run up the hills in high heels, so.
Exactly. It's not so much a resistance thing to be incredibly fashion. Although, in the especially in the 1970s, rebel chic was a big thing because of the whole famous South American rebels, Che Guevara, and people taking photos of him and like in the beret with the shaggy hair and everything like that. And suddenly that became a fashion statement, and people were inspired by that whole look.
Which actually, now that you mention it, when I first presented like the first mountain partisans, because they were different than the city partisans that would stick out like a sore thumb if they were like the mountain partisans. So the city partisans were just more or less as middle class to working class people. And depending on their situation, you could have like a range. But the partisans that were in the mountains had very much, the shaggy hair, beards, berets, and, the whole 9 yards. And the first comment that I got was that this is Che Guevara. So I had to actually post original black and white photos of these people. And they were like, they are all Che Guevara. They are all Che Guevara.
They all copied him. Damn it. Frickin' Greek time travelers.
Yeah.
Stealing. Bloody Chileans looks. How could you do that?
This is a very interesting, convergence in the sense that it probably was a very practical thing to have. Like, I don't know about the hat and why they all had berets, but, being shaggy and having beards means that you didn't need to constantly shave or trim your hair and stuff like that, which probably wasn't easy in the mountains. So, yeah.
It seems to be a common thread with a lot of irregular fighters, guerrillas, as they are known. So, it's a common thread, definitely, and it definitely captured people's imaginations in the 1970s anyway. Where that was a look. That was fashion for a while. Pitt, you've always had a bit of a certain fashion style. I remember in, of course, the famous Putrid Meat. Thrash fashion was a very big thing in there. And that is a fashion. Yeah. That is a style.
It's your battle jackets.
Yeah, the battle jackets, the torn jeans.
The hair, a lot of thrash metal fashion was in there, like the bandoliers, like the bullet belts around the waist and that kind of thing. Trying to think of Tread's fashion, I thought was pretty distinctive as well. The full black Bulgarian kind of bodysuit with the blue stripe up the side and a gas mask. And now in my later and older years, I have discovered it's very gimpish. Before I developed a propensity for that kind of thing. It's always been there, I guess. But and then Gretchen, I liked how Gretchen and Felix were dressed. It was kind of this almost like uber American looking, like red, white, blue, and then she's got like the stars on the nipples and like all that. And very what's the word? High profile, like
weirdly
Americana.
Patriotic, Americana.
Yeah.
Strangely nationalistic outfits.
Yeah, for people who don't live in America anymore, but who have never lived in America, and America doesn't even exist anymore in that place. But I don't know. I was doing whatever was fun at the time. I still am glad I did that.
Now I saw those outfits as like shorthand for nationalism, basically.
Now, yeah, but now I wasn't thinking about it that deeply. I think subconsciously I was. To me, it just looked, what it reminded me more of is of a kind of Reaganomics vibe, like a bit decadent and the greed is good kind of vibe. So that's, I think, if I was going for anything, I think that's more what I was probably kind of going for.
Yeah. Okay. So not extreme kind of crazy nationalists. More of those.
Yeah, he's
just having fun with it.
I think he's too far. Or Felix and Gretchen are too much about themselves, as in like they don't really care what any other people are doing as long as it doesn't as long as they get what they want, which does lead to fascism a lot of times. But I wouldn't praise a fascist, but I don't think he was smart enough to be a fascist. Exis was more of a fascist. That's like the more
solidly.
Yeah. So and then he in comparison, he's a suit and tie guy.
He was very much agreed as good guy. Yeah, it's such an 80s feel to that. It's interesting. One thing like I'm taking away from this is the thing I brought up, shorthand for nationalism. And before we were talking about Nazi uniforms and stuff, and we mentioned the Sam Brown belt, and that's interesting because the Sam Brown belt is Sam Brown belt is always a shorthand for fascism, and it's not just because the Nazis wore it; it's because all governments tend in the early 20th century, right at the First World War, tended to be a bit, fascist. That's how they all were. Britain and America and everybody was like that. And they all had Sam Brown belts at that stage. Everybody wore that. Everybody had jodhpurs. Everybody had that kind of uniform. But the Sam Brown belt became just a symbol of fascism in isolation, and that's all you have to do. All you have to do is wear a cross belt on one side, attached to a waist belt, and that just indicates fascism. That is just a very kind of minimalistic indication of it, which I don't know if that's as popular now, that people really understand that symbolism now, because it's been dead for quite a few years. But yeah, that is an interesting aspect of fashion. So yeah, people remember that. If you want to indicate someone is fascist, just give them a leather belt down one side. Yeah, a seatbelt, exactly. It's true, and it's not just Nazi. It's for every country, everyone from America to Greece to Finland to Russia. Everybody. So everybody did it, and yeah, everybody can be it. Okay, so perhaps that's a bit of a dead end. I don't know if that can flow to anything else.
Dead air.
Yeah.
But yeah, fashion does symbolize a lot about a character's either personality or political affiliation, or where they're at, even psychological situation. For example, in counseling, the first thing that we learn is to do the primary assessment, and the primary assessment involves just looking at the person as they walk in to the office and see how well groomed they are. And when I say well groomed, I don't mean to have like an elaborate hairstyle or something like that, but just how much of control they have over their own cleanliness and stuff like that. The other thing is the clothes that they have opted to wear to the session, and of course the general way that they carry themselves. But the clothes and the grooming are very important as a first assessment. It's not something that will judge you or something, but it gives you a baseline of where this person is psychologically. So
that's interesting. Yeah, it definitely does. You can often tell a lot about a person by the way that they choose to present themselves. You can't always, definitely, because there's so many exceptions. And okay, this is another bugbear of mine. The exception doesn't prove the rule.
No, not always.
There just are exceptions. Okay. So anyway, yeah, you can often tell where someone is at by the way they choose to present themselves. Maybe they choose to identify with a certain subculture. That's part of it. Or yeah, it could be like, yeah, they're not well groomed or whatever, or they just chose to show affiliation with some kind of group. And it's very interesting to see, and we can all tell. It's not a mystery. It's not something that's secret knowledge. We can tell. Oh yeah, that person is wanting to appear really young, or wanting to show that they're into techno, or this guy is a builder. That's what they do.
I was. This reminds me of. This is off topic maybe, but I was like cold read by a psychic. The one time I went to a psychic, out of curiosity and interest. I don't tense. You're in that field, so no offense. And this is how you do your cold reading and stuff. I was like, yeah, this guy like had a read on me, and this guy had been recommended by someone I know, and so I was curious. I'm interested in that stuff. So I went, and his cold read on me. I mean, what I am is so different from what I look like. Thank you, Tance. And he had me all wrong. He just like cold read me, and it was completely wrong. It was quite funny.
Oh, oh my God! I remember a story that my mom said. Like she related about a similar situation. So when my grandfather was killed, my grandmother was wearing, all black, and as widows do, in Greece at least, and uh, things were very heavy and stuff. So my mom also was wearing all black, and she went to have a reading with her friends because her friends were very much into the seance and reading stuff, and dragged her along more or less. Mm-hmm. So, but the cold reading freaked her out because she said something very disturbing about my grandfather. And so when she went back home, my grandmother was livid, and she said, okay, I'm going to fix her. Mm-hmm. And she took off all the black. She dressed up as a young woman ready for, flirting or going out to pick up a guy or something like that. And when we're talking 1974, 75, around there. Mm-hmm. So, and she did up her face, she combed her hair, the whole 9 yards. And she went for a reading about her fiancé, who was my dead grandfather. And of course, she got a completely wrong cold reading, very much in accordance to what the appearance was. And then she sort of, basically, she caused a huge row and grabbed the fortune teller by the hair and stuff like that. It was a huge scene. And she got like a compensation, a monetary compensation, so that she would keep quiet. But of course, she didn't keep quiet, and we all know the story. So there's that.
Yes. So you cannot always tell where someone is at by what they're wearing. Definitely. No. Yes. So do not rely on it.
No.
I mean, in a comic, though, if someone's drawing it that way, obviously there's a certain image being suggested, depending on context, of course. But usually, yeah, you can get a feel for stuff. I mean, I'll be surprised if my characters make the news post. TK with his baggy yellow shirt, yellow jersey, and pink pants. I don't know what Oz would make of that, but hard to.
Well, definitely they, dress a particular way because that's the way you chose to represent their character, obviously, but that kind of means something about their character too. So, TK's look means he's someone who does not work super hard on how he presents himself, or maybe he's, he's not like confident enough in himself that he would like to present himself in a particular way that would really show off, a personality trait. So he's someone who likes to blend in, that kind of thing. Or he's too afraid to kind of, like, he's not afraid as a person, but he's, not brave enough to show up in a pinstripe suit to work or something like this, or bell bottoms or something like that. So he's very conservative in the way he dresses. That kind of stuff. He can.
Yeah, that's well put, actually. I mean, I would say, if anything, that was it was that, like kind of reflecting the character's basic personality, and also like sort of having an assortment of colors between the main cast, so they kind of have a variety of colors between them. So
yes, so you wouldn't be able to necessarily say, oh, he wears yellow because blah 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 blah. No, he wears yellow because this guy wears green, and that's just
kinda, yeah. I mean, I've put Oscar. I've experimented with Oscar in like a red outfit or a yellow or like brighter clothes, and it doesn't really work. He's a guy who,
okay.
I put him in blue or gray or whatever, and that's reflects his personality better than like a red or an orange.
All right.
And Abigail the same. I sort of toyed with like, should they be the three primary colors? Oscar, TK, Abigail are kind of the main trio. But even Abigail didn't look quite. I didn't quite like the red on her sometimes, but I softened that a little bit. So, there is that kind of thing, just the visual thing, and the definitely the carelessness of Oscar and TK, and the less carelessness of Abby.
Red is more a Harley kind of color.
Yes, it's true. I can put her in red, but Wade and Penelope both wear red, as it happens. So Harley went with green by default. By elimination. Yeah.
But so, from that perspective, we can say red represents, often anger or someone who's very direct in the way they think, and
boldness, directness, kind of thing, which is a little bit Abigail too, but
or passionate.
Too much red going on.
Passion.
Passion. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's lots of different ways you can take it. You can talk about all these kind of aspects. Jewelry, accessories. These kinds of things can be important too, as you choose to, how you choose to accessorize your character. Do they wear a lot of jewelry? That can be something. The style of glasses. That's super important as well. How they wear their glasses towards the end of the nose, up on their head, pushed right up high on their face. So there's so many different aspects that you chose to depict your character in a particular way for whatever reason. So and you have a whole ensemble cast, which makes it a lot easier. So I can just pick out someone rather, like I wouldn't for the spotlight. I've resolved not to do every single character in a comic. I'll either just pick out one or two. That way it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
What's that, Bates?
That said, that would be a huge undertaking, first of all, to try to do that.
Oh, yeah. And then to read it all as well.
Yeah, it would be a ton of homework to do.
Exactly. It takes me hours just to do last week's one. Like, literally hours. And it is painful. When you're tackling every single aspect of someone's outfit.
Yeah.
And getting the terms to describe it as well. Like, okay, so he has a cross bordered in this, and it sets off this, and then it, goes along like the inside of his arms and thighs. Oh, Jesus Christ, make it stop. Too many details. But that's me. I'm a detail-oriented person, so I can get right down into the hair follicles and skin pores and DNA. If you let me. So, yeah.
I spent a lot of time, like the most time I've ever spent on fashion, it's for a comic that I haven't finished or put anywhere or anything like that, but I was working on the uniforms of these characters. And it was definitely kind of like an anime or manga influence. So I'm working on it. They had pants, they had vests, and I was like sort of give them white shirts and vests, and like sort of the trim on the vest would be different colors, but mostly they'd be similar because it's like a team, and there's maybe a fantastical, magical element to it. So I was drawing this stuff over and over and over. This is a year or two ago. I'm still not ready with the comic. Getting closer. But when I find, and this is a little bit related to a story Tance tells on, I think you tell it on Patreon. I think we were recording. But so I finished them up and I started drawing them and putting the characters side by side. And after all this work, I looked at them and they looked like hotel caterers or something. It was just completely wrong. Like this is.
Oh no, that's disaster.
Yeah, it was enjoyable to do still, but I'm like, this creates the wrong impression. Maybe if they're undercover and they're like laying out the buffet at some of those corporate meetings.
Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, well, that is one of the problems with uniforms and things. You can fall afoul of that. I mean, look at my Hussar uniform, which is a classic style, but the Hussar uniform is where Americans. This is, maybe Europe, but yeah, particularly this is an American thing. They have the bellhops and band people in like high school bands.
Yes.
The Hussar uniform is where they got all that from originally. So yeah, if you're not careful in your Hussar uniform, you can look like a freaking bellhop, busboy or something, which is not the right impression.
No.
Even in my like white tie, so I have this white tie, top hat kind of stuff that Fred Astaire was known for kind of wearing, putting on the Ritz, that kind of stuff. And even that uniform has been co-opted by that whole waiter kind of thing. So you can
exactly. Yeah.
You look terrible in anything you wear. So yeah.
I also spent a lot of time
just don't wear anything at all.
Oh, sorry, Pitt. Go ahead.
Just braces.
Oh, nope, sorry, I was rude.
Oh no. Go ahead.
Oh, I said just don't wear anything at all. Then. Never mind.
Exactly. That's what we went with Bottomless Waitress.
Advocating nudity.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say, Bones?
I was just going to branch off to another. I spent a lot of time designing a sci-fi uniform, like a Star Trek type uniform. And it's a lot of work, to make something that to me was simple enough. I wanted it to be simple and something that would work on various shapes and sizes of characters. And like color-coded or not color-coded, I wasn't really sure, still not sure. But it's tough to get a simple, powerful design,
It really is. Even the Star Trek guys struggled. If you watch the Star Trek The Next Generation, which is, I fucking love that series. It's awesome. But in the early episodes, their stupid lycra tops look so ridiculous now because they're skin tight on everyone, and it just the low neck.
The hair apparently is really tough.
Yeah, apparently they stunk too because it just collects sweat and it's this artificial fabric and it's really nasty. But then you watch in the later episodes, the uniform changes and it gets a high neck, and it's not so skin tight anymore because it's wool now. So it was wool then. So it meant they didn't stink, they were easy to wash, and anyway they looked way better, and they just looked amazing. That uniform, it was simplistic, it was not simplistic, it was minimal and just stylish and futuristic at the same time. But as you say, it's not easy to come up with that kind of uniform. And if you watch another sci-fi series, Babylon 5, that was sort of around at the same sort of time, they came up with uniforms for those characters, and no one looks good in those uniforms. Everyone looks freaking awful. Everyone looks just, fat and overweight and bloated in those uniforms because they're a poor design, and that shows how massively hard it is to come up with that kind of thing and make it look good. So fashion is hard, not easy. Watch Babylon 5 and see. worst looking sci-fi uniforms I have ever seen.
Oh, really?
They're that bad. No, Pet. Fashion is hard, dying is easy. Oh, you actually did say that. I'm an idiot. I'm like dyslexic. I read that the wrong way.
I was like, why are you yelling at me?
Jeez, yes, Pit, you are 100% correct. And my brain is messed up. But yeah.
At least you're wearing a stunning mustache.
Yeah, for people who don't know, well, if you have the Patreon video, you'll be able to see. No, you won't be able to see my fantastic mustache. You'll be able to see the pink one, the pink chin beard that I wear as a nod to the Pride Week or Pride Day or whatever. So yeah, I have a zoom filter that gives me fantastic facial hair. At the moment, it's given me like like you would call it a Van Dyke, I think, or a Three Musketeers kind of goatee and a moustache combo. So yes, thank you, Zoom.
Stuff.
Oh, and Tance is showing off with her hairy pussycat, Mr.
Demos.
Yes. He was starting to meow a lot, so this is how he will not meow, and then he will escape in a bit.
What a baby boy!
He looks
He's
very
got
cute.
the best fashion. He's got fur fashion, but you can't wear it because it's bad.
He's got his little dark ear patches, which is he's very minimal.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
He looks like a bald guy, you know, who has those two little tufts on either side.
Combo.
Which never.
Don't worry, buddy. Nobody knows the difference.
Actually, that did take off as a fashion in like the 50s, I think it was. That did for bald people now. If you're bald now, the fashion is to just shave your head. But back in the 1950s, it was a thing for, if I'm bald, I will show that I'm bald. And they didn't do the whole comb over thing. Well, people did do the comb over, but the fashion was for just have the tufts on the side and just own it. And that was quite interesting. And yeah, that was a specific 1950s fashion. My grandfather actually had that. And, well, a super weird bit of trivia, my grandfather had that, but when I knew him in, like, you know, the 80s, he actually had a full head of hair, and it wasn't a wig, and it wasn't a, like a hair transplant, because they didn't have that then. His hair grew back, so, yeah.
Wow.
Weird.
Wow.
I suspect maybe in the 1950s he just shaved... created the fake bald look. Who knows? To make himself look more authoritarian. Who knows? Anyway, yeah. So hair can become a fashion. What about you guys with your hairstyles, your characters?
Well, except Iris, who has very characteristic 1940s hairstyles for Greece, because it's not just 1940s looked more or less similar across a lot of countries, but there were some specific, like small differentiations. So she has those. The other guys cannot really spend time fixing their hair as much. However, most of them, like most of the men at least, but also the women, have these side parts that were very much in fashion at the time. So if the hair is parted, it usually is parted on one side or the other side. So even though they don't really, like the hair is mostly unkept hair. And you can see traces of when they were more groomed, let's say, because the hair has grown out, but it has grown out in the style that it used to be a lot. Especially with Basil, I did that a lot because he had this very neat, lawyery 1940s side part with the brillianting, the whole 9 yards. Because we had a lot of brillianting in Greece for some reason. I don't know if there was a fetish with this. And then, because he has also gone through depression and stuff like that, he has not really kept up any of that. And you can see it because his hair is jagged and it falls in that style. It's just grown in a sense. So yeah, that.
And Fotis with his unruly, shaggy head of kinky hair.
Yeah, and he also side parts whenever it's visible. So yeah.
Yeah, Fotis looks cool. Baines, your characters have all this distinctive hairstyles.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was just working on. I'm trying to get back into shape drawing lately to try to post new pages. I've been working on a redesign of Oscar, the main character Oscar's hair, which I was drawing him from different angles, and it's hard for me to keep him consistent and looking good, so to quote unquote good, looking right from different angles. So I was kind of redesigning his kind of shaggy, unkempt hair a little bit. The other characters, Harley is tough too. She just has long hair. But Abigail with her bun, there's been some variety to her. As she loosens up, she will once in a while have a looser ponytail. TK has a very distinctive hairstyle. I really like drawing it. And I like the way his whole design I really like. Oscar is a tough one, so I've been sort of working on his hair, still keeping it very much Oscar, but kind of a slight change. We'll see how it works. Okay. In Chatterbox, it's mostly like there's a contrast between CB, who doesn't care at all. Her hair is crazy, and she's a wild child, and Lily is the opposite. She owns a comb.
She's a proud possessor of a comb.
Yeah, she's a okay.
So, yeah. How vain of her. Well, yeah. Pinky, of course, with hair, has such a crazy hairstyle that she's named after.
Yeah.
And that's a legacy of the the weirdness of her creation. There's no reason why she should have pink hair in the comic. Actually, there's many reasons why she shouldn't have pink hair, but she has it anyway, so it does not make sense. There is no reason for it.
It speaks volumes, though, that kind of hairstyle and color takes a lot of maintenance, and she does it. And I think you have like a couple of panels where you show her dyeing her hair.
Oh, that was in a comedy comic version.
Oh, was it?
I think.
Well, still. But anyway, I mean, considering that it is dyed and it's not like her natural color, anime color, coloring, it takes a lot of maintenance. And she invests the time to be pink haired, and that tells a lot about the character.
It does, yeah. That's a good point. There is there's a significant aspect to her appearance and her wanting to present herself in that way. And she has to have put in the effort in order to have presented herself in this way. Like you're saying, she's not born with it. And in the universe of my comic, people don't just naturally have weird coloured hair. So yeah, she deliberately makes choices about how she's going to appear, just like people do in the real world. But when people do it in the real world, it depends on the cultural context. So in certain contexts, there's a lot lower barrier, the cultural context, well, not the context, but there's a lot lower barrier of I don't know, a social inertia for you to get beyond in order to, stand out. In other cultures, the barrier is much higher. So, say in Pinky's culture, where no one else looks like that, obviously the barrier is a lot higher. So there is a very specific kind of meaning there. Say in our world, I don't know, in my world, I can't speak for everyone else, but if you were to go out in the street and you had, bright blue hair or bright pink hair, it's not going to attract any real notice. Maybe from some very silly people it might attract notice, but generally it won't, because, who cares? But say if you're in Afghanistan at the moment,
it will cause a sensation.
Yes, to put it mildly. Yeah, exactly. Or say if you're in America and you're a member of, I don't know, the Amish or, one of those groups. There's...
Yeah. In 1940s, 50s Greece, if you had your hair dyed even a normal color, it was unthinkable for it to be a non-normal color, then you would be considered a whore. The only one that actually dyed their
hair.
Yes. Were prostitutes. So, women, it was not illegal, but women avoided dyeing their hair for that reason. Mm-hmm. Or they had to be extremely clever about it. It had to be very much their own color, their natural color, just covering the whites and stuff like that. And it had to be done in a way that it wasn't obvious that you had dyed your hair, which was...
Oh, speaking of dyed hair and choosing to present yourself in a certain way, this reminds me of a little anecdote. Now, the first time I came to Greece, stayed in this terrible youth, hostel. Terrible. And the guy who managed it must have been about in his early 70s or something. But he had his hair cut in the emo style, which was popular for 19-year-olds at the time, and really thick, and dyed coal black, and it looked so unnatural because it was so black and so solidly in their style. And I'm talking fringe, right down just above his nose, just almost at his eyes, like a solid helmet of hair. And I mean, his clothes as well, he was dressed like a 19-year-old and had hair like a 19-year-old, and he was 70. And it was just, more power to him. He can choose to present himself in whatever way he wanted. But it was always weird looking at him, because you see the 19-year-old look and a 70-year-old guy, and the brain has trouble reconciling those two different things. So that was always a visual dyslexia every single time. And the hair looked so artificial. It was, my brain couldn't cope. It's like when you're looking at a, an optical illusion. Your brain tells you something is real, and your eyes tell you something is real and is there, but your brain tells you that it can't be. And that was it. He was a magic trick.
You're not sure if he was something you thought about out of sleep, out of a dream you had at one point.
Walking dream, exactly. Exactly, yeah. It was, am I awake? Am I sleeping? Oh God, someone wake me up, please. This nightmare creature. It's in that, what's that movie, Inception, where something is meant to knock you out of the dream or tell you that you're dreaming. You know, the spinning top or something.
Yeah.
That guy walks into the room and you go, "Oh my god!" Someone's trapped me in a dream. Yeah. So there we are. That was my interesting anecdote for a guy with weird hair. And as I say, more power to him. It's not a problem with him. It's a problem with me. Because, you know, you choose to present yourself however you like. So, hair is a thing. I think in when we're talking about like putrid meat, most people had long hair in that comic, if I remember.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, that's a Thrash thing, but
I also got so used to drawing long hair that I realized after that I didn't really know how to draw short hair anymore. Because like you think it's just like, oh, just make it short, but like there's different ways that hair lays when it's short.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn that again for inhabitants because Alamut has short hair and he ends up having a very short, almost kind of like a Roman emperor kind of cut a little bit, that very short chopped hair, very bad medieval haircut. But yeah, it was kind of a journey trying to figure out how I wanted his hair to look, and it's finally to a place where I'm really happy with it. But like at first, like when I would try to draw that super short haircut, it would be like it wouldn't look right, or somehow, although you would think it'd be simple, something was making it complex, and I think it's mostly because of how the front hairline falls. And then goes down the sides. Like that's really important with short hair to know how to draw. Unless you have bangs that are like obscuring the way or something. But if it's short like that, you kind of need to know how it goes. And then once I did get that down, it was just like he looked too generic. And so now what I do is I'll draw the hair and I'll draw it kind of long and choppy, almost like Basil's haircut, and then I just put a line straight across it and then draw them real blunt. And then I'll have pieces sticking up too. So to give it kind of a bit more like it almost looks a tiny bit staticky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it looks really good on him, and I like drawing it. And then the way it sits on his neck too is almost like it dovetails just slightly. So instead of having it to where when I would draw it before, I would have it just kind of match like his neckline, which also felt very boring and not memorable. So now it kind of dovetails slightly down his neck. So he's got this nice kind of these kind of baby bangs now that suit him quite well, I think.
Nice.
Big muscular hunk, and then he's got these baby bangs, and then he likes he's gonna end up developing a penchant for how's this for fashion, for like kind of loud Hawaiian shirts along with what are they called, yoga pants.
Pants, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
They look so good on him though, because that he wears the shirt and they usually just kind of hang over, his midsection a bit. It's not like he tucks them in. It's something about it looks really fucking good, and just some tennis shoes, and then his sword belt hangs off of his regular belt. Yeah, it's gonna be real good. And then he doesn't have a nose. He doesn't have a face anymore. So,
one thing occurs to me: when you mentioned Hawaiian shirt, now. Have you ever seen the TV show Farscape?
I know. Oh, Farscape! Oh, I thought you could bring up something else. No.
Well, Farscape, yeah. So this is a great sci-fi show, and it never really took off very well because it didn't have a very good villain until it got this guy called Scorpius, who is this amazing guy dressed in full gimp gear. PVC shiny gimp gear, Scorpius. You should look it up. It
oh my
looks
gods and goddess!
freaking amazing. And then in for a season, I don't know, there's a version of him is wearing the full gimp gear, but with a Hawaiian shirt over the top. And so you can find pictures of it online. Scorpius in a Hawaiian shirt.
I'm looking it up as we speak. Let's see.
I think that's called Harvey when he dresses like that. But yeah.
Oh.
He is amazing.
Oh.
Wayne Pigram is the actor. Strange name.
Wayne Pigram.
But yeah, he looks awesome in his gimp gear. So they're fashion in a TV show. And a TV show that didn't really... I mean, it worked okay. It was pretty
There
good.
he is. Oh my god, that's adorable.
Yes, Harvey. There we go. Oh, speaking of fashion, the design of that shirt is actually by an artist collective called Mambo, who were started by a guy called Reg Mombassa, who was the guitarist for a band called Mental as Anything in Australia in the 80s, who came up with some fantastic songs. But then they created these paintings with these weird images and then transitioned into doing Hawaiian shirts and fashion and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's fantastic that actually appeared in this TV show. Here I am, a font of fashion knowledge.
You've always been a font of fashion knowledge. Which is why I'm so excited that you have this new addition to the Duck now. I think it's unique, and I think you're going to bring something to it, like a fervor and a passion that could probably be a little too much sometimes, but I think that's what we need. Put yourself full force into these things, Oz. I think you can only make them amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll go in full spectrum.
Go full Bravo on it.
Full Bravo. Oh, well, and that's on that note we should probably end. Thank you so much for listening to the QUACKCAST, people. The fashion spotlight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Oh, no.
Bye.
Bye, yo.